I started recording. Okay, girls, what are we going to take today? We will take literature. We took Hiroshima, written by John what? John Hersey. And today we will, girls, are you with me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Today we'll take the third read. Third read, open page 250. Okay. I'll share my PowerPoint with you.
Miss,
Yes?
you have a test next week or something?
Week 5. Next week is week 4. We will have the test on week 5.
Thank you, Miss.
Welcome, dear.
Can you repeat the page?
250. Here is it. Okay. Hiroshima, the third read. 250. You all of you opened your book.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Najwa, are you here, Najwa? Yes, Najwa. Please, Najwa, read and raise your voice.
I start.
Yes, start from the beginning, page 250.
Excerpt Hiroshima in the Morning, Aunt Molly's Vision by Rana Rico Risotto.
Yes, so here, Hiroshima in the Morning. In June 2001, Rana Rico Risotto is the author. She went to Hiroshima, she traveled there to search for a deeper understanding of her war-torn heritage. War-torn heritage, which means the left of her heritage. What happened to her heritage had been torn by war. Had been torn by war. She planned to spend 6 months there, interviewing the few remaining survivors of the atomic bomb. Okay? Here is she, Rana Rico Risotto, and her book Hiroshima in the Morning. Ready, Nashwa?
Rana Rico Risotto, an award-winning Japanese-American author, traveled to Hiroshima in 2001 in order to interview survivors of the bombing. Risotto turned her research into a memoir in which she explores the traumatic experiences of the survivors while also examining her own life and the role of that memory plays in understanding ourselves.
Yes. Underline it, please. Examining her own life and the role that memory plays in understanding ourselves. The role that memory plays in understanding ourselves. Who can tell me what does this sentence mean? The role that memory plays in understanding ourselves. Grade 10, are you here?
Miss, which slide are you in?
It is the last line in the blurb, in this small paragraph. So no one, girls, in grade 10? No one can? Hello?
Yes, Miss.
What does it mean? A role the memory plays in understanding ourselves.
Miss, I leave and come back because I
You don't
can't
hear
see
me?
the presentation. No, I can't see the presentation.
So other girls, do you see the presentation?
Yes.
No, Miss.
Yes.
Yes.
Who can tell me a role a memory plays in understanding ourselves?
Miss, maybe because of this event, some people they felt more thankful because of the bomb.
Yes.
So this memory, it's like plays in understanding ourselves more to appreciate life more.
Yes. Memory is what has happened, is in our memories. What has happened is there in our memory. So what happened to us when we were young tells us who we are. Okay? Where have you been raised? What is your heritage? What happened to you? What happened to your family? What happened to your ancestors? It helps you to understand yourself more. You understand?
Yes.
Yes.
So memory plays in understanding ourselves a major role by realizing who really are we, what is our past. Okay, continue Najwa.
Aunt Molly saw the city when it was not. She told me about it the first time we met, but I wasn't listening. And my deafness then, almost 8 years ago now, the reason I come to Japan.
So here what happens? Here risotto is the author. Here she writes a narrative, she writes things that has happened to her. So she says that she saw Aunt Molly. Aunt Molly seems to be another woman. Her name is Aunt Molly. She saw the city when it was not. She told me about it the first time we met. So when Risotto was young, she saw, or 8 years before now, before she writes, she told her about the city when it was not a city. She told her about what happened in Hiroshima after the bomb. But I was not listening. Who was not listening?
Result.
Risotto. She was not listening. She was not listening to whom? To Aunt Molly. Why? She says, because I was, but my deafness then, my deafness is when you cannot hear. It doesn't mean literally that she was deaf. She means that she didn't want to listen. She didn't want to hear. Girls, when you meet your mother's aunt, for example, and she starts to tell you any story, all the stories, sometimes you focus with her and other times you just don't want to listen, right?
Yes.
So this happened with Risotto. When she saw Aunt Molly told her about Hiroshima and the city, but she didn't hear. But it remained inside of her. The story remained inside. And this was the reason that she went to Hiroshima, to hear more about those stories. Okay? Okay, continue Najwa.
Molly arrived in Hiroshima in 1946, too late to see the lily of the valley lamps that hung in telescoping arches over the
So
river.
when Molly arrived to Hiroshima in 1946, it was before or after the bomb?
After,
After, because she says too late to see the lily of the valley.
over the under shopping arcade or the men in creased black
Yes,
suits.
this is the shopping arcade, girls. This is in the picture. This. Okay. So she went there after, too late to see the lily of the valley lamps that hung in telescoping arcs over the Hondori shopping arcade. She didn't see the lily. It means that she went there after the city has been destroyed by the bomb. Okay? Or the men, yes, or she didn't see the men. Continue.
Or men in creased black suits and bowler hats, or the
Yes,
ladies,
these are the bowler hats. Okay. Huh?
or the ladies escorted. Ladies who
Or with the men, yani men and women, they walk together, like here in this picture, but here. But she didn't see the man who wears this hat or the women with them, the ladies who trailed the hems of flowers around their covered ankle. How they used to dress, how they used to walk, how they used to act. She didn't see those old Japanese. Continue.
Ladies who trailed hems of flowers around their covered ankles, who were replaced by workers carrying in mono pants.
Yes,
Men
these are the mono pants. And instead of watching people make shopping there and enjoy the arcs, the shopping arcade, and this, she found workers. Why there were workers, girls? What were these workers doing?
Restoring the city.
Yes, restoring the city. Excellent. Yes, continue, Najwa.
Men who were never replaced but simply disappeared. Too late for the bomb, for the sea of fire, the endless bed of concrete stones. My great aunt was one of the few Americans who ever saw the burned out city. But by
Highlight
the
it,
time
please. So her great aunt is Aunt Molly was the only woman, one of the few Americans who ever saw the burned out city. She went there directly after the city was burned. Hmm?
But by the time she got to Hiroshima, people were already building shelters on the small plots of wasteland where their homes had stood, where their brothers and sisters had been incinerated.
Incinerated. What is incinerated? Burned till ashes. Burned till became ashes. So
Where they
people are restoring, as Rujain said or Layan said, are restoring their city. She went to Hiroshima when people were restoring their city. Yes.
continue,
Yes.
where they had returned to gather their mother's gleaming bones.
Yes. Their mother's gleaming bones. What is left of their mother's bones? Their brothers and sisters have been incinerated, and what is left of their mother's bones. Okay. So, thank you, Najwa. Jana?
Yes.
Jana? Yes, Jana, continue reading Jana, page 251.
Okay. Um,
In those days,
okay.
251.
In those days, if you hiked even a short distance of the mountains that ring the outer river delta, you could still get a clear view through the ghost of what once was Hiroshima.
Underline it, please. A ghost of what was once called Hiroshima. A ghost, shadow of a city. There is no city anymore. Okay?
Yeah, miles away to the shore of the inland city. But there was already a black market where people sold what they had and bought what they could, and ate dog meat without caring what it was.
Oh,
There were
so there was a black market when people sold everything they have. Okay? Sold what they had and bought what they could. When you sell what you have to buy what you can get, it shows how financially they are poor.
yes,
They were so poor. They ate what?
dog meat
Dog
without
meat. Yes, without considering what is it. And this was the reason, girls, of this was the result in major wars, that people start to eat animals, strange animals. So in Japan, they started to eat dogs at that time. Okay, and in China, by the way, too, in the time of recession, in the time of hunger, in the time of poor, they started to eat those rats and dogs, also cats. That was the main reason. There is no enough food, so they start to eat anything that moves, anything that walks. You understand? So people in Japan before Hiroshima, they didn't eat the dog meat, but they started to eat it. Okay, they want to eat anything they can. Are you with me?
Yes.
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 Must I continue?
Yes, there were soldiers.
There were soldiers, albeit Australian and English, because the Americans were being housed in radiation-free zone, giving chocolate
Look at
to
this
big
because it's between parentheses, which means it's important. There were soldiers in Japan, soldiers in there. The soldiers were English, it mean from England or from Australia, because the Americans were where they were. The Americans were what?
being
Being
housed
housed, yes,
in radiation-free zone.
radiation-free zones. They lived in radiation-free. There is no radiation in those zones to protect themselves, okay, of the gamma rays, as we said. So the American soldiers, they protected themselves in radiation-free zones, but they what? They bombed nuclear bombs on Japanese. Huh? You understand? And then giving chocolate to
Giving
begging
chocolate,
orphans with the stock. They
um,
they give chocolate to
benevolent.
the orphans of Japan. So he kills his father and he gives him chocolate to show how merciful he is.
Miss,
Again,
can I
yes,
ask you a question?
yes, please.
Miss, who's giving the chocolate? The Americans?
Americans. That's it. That's it. She says that he kills his father and he gives him chocolate.
Ah,
He
yes.
gives him chocolate to begging orphans. Who made him an orphan? You made him an orphan. You killed
But
his
Miss,
father. You threw him in. Yes, dear.
isn't the American soldiers in the free zoned areas those without radiation?
But
I see
yes, but now
they're giving
the country has the country Hiroshima. No one lives there anymore. So people who were living there, they got distributed in other places. So of course, a few of them went near to the American soldiers. Okay, so begging orphans with the stock benevolence. What benevolence means? Benevolence is kindness. Kindness, benevolence, we have all come to recognize from the movies. Underline, please, this sentence. We have all recognized from movies. What does it mean? History says, are you with me, girls?
yes.
Okay, history says that, okay, let me. History says that who threw the bomb on Hiroshima, on Japan? The American soldiers. And they went to Hiroshima and they stayed there in places on away of the zone of the radiation. And they, because they are so kind, as we can watch in movies, they are so kind, they give the orphans chocolate. This is an act of kindness, an act of benevolence. The same problem of Vietnam War, if we have discussed it together, Vietnam War and Hiroshima. They went in Vietnam. What happened in Vietnam? They went to Vietnam, and there was a war there to fight communism. Remember when I told you the story about Germany and how Germany was divided into East and West with the Soviet Union and with the United States? Remember?
In
Yes.
vocabulary.
Yes, when communism spread in Vietnam, American soldiers went to Vietnam to fight the Vietnamese and they killed them. And in the American movies, we see the soldiers, how the story of Vietnam is presented. It is presented that the American soldiers have suffered in the Vietnam War. So she says the same idea that the same idea happened in Hiroshima. They killed the parents, and yet they go to give chocolate to them. And in the movies, we say, "Oh, look at the American soldiers. Look at them, how sweet they are." You understand, girls? What does she want to say?
Teacher, how it's allowed to like do movies that aren't
American movies. American movies, American actors, American history, everything American. Who will object? No one.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Miss,
yes, dear.
can I ask you, Miss?
Yes, please.
Miss, they said in parentheses, what is the albeit or albite?
This you mean
The one
the exact, wait a minute.
it's like because they mentioned, and because the Americans they were in the house, they were being housed, so the Australian and the English people, they were the ones giving them jobs.
Yes, there were soldiers, but American, but Australian and English only because the American lived away. But
Yeah, and
يعني
those
albeit it
soldiers
means
they were
bite, but
yes, and those soldiers they were giving them who were American, who
the
were sorry,
American.
Australian
My
and
here she says to you because the American were being housed in radiation-free zones, giving who have been housed, giving chocolate to begging orphans with the stock benevolence. We have all come to recognize in English movies, on the movies.
Miss here giving is for the Americans or for soldiers?
Americans gave the orphans the chocolate.
Uh, yes.
Okay,
Mm.
continue, Jenna.
Yes, okay. Benevolence, we
Yeah,
have
Hiroshima was manageable by then, huh? Continue.
we have all come to recognize from the movies. Hiroshima was manageable by then. If not a city, then still a place. If not alive, then at least no longer dying. When I
At that time, Japan, Hiroshima was not a dying city. It was يعني, neither alive, neither dead. It means that they are restoring their city. They are rebuilding their city. Yes.
when I first went to California to interview my mother's aunt, more than 50 years after the bombing, Molly was full of Hiroshima, haunted and desperate to get it out. She wanted to break the silence.
Please underline she was full of Hiroshima, haunted and desperate to get it out.
But I didn't want it to hear.
Ah, when I went there, when I went to interview my mother's aunt, more than 50 years after the bombing, Molly was full of Hiroshima, haunted and desperate to get it out. She wanted to break the silence when she first saw Aunt Molly, and Aunt Molly was telling her about Hiroshima. She wanted to get it out of her. When you talk about something that disturbs you, you get out of it. You get it out of your heart. But at that time, Risotto was not concentrating. She didn't want to hear. She didn't want to listen. I didn't want to hear. Underline it. Who didn't want to hear, girls?
Risotto.
Risotto. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Jana. Kadra. Kadra.
Yes,
Kadra from line 36. Yeah, Kadra.
okay. This is what haunts me now. How could I have come into adulthood in America without knowing about the atomic bombing? Once I was faced with a family member who had actually been there, how could I have chosen to ignore?
So at that point, she realized, Rana, Risotto realized, how can I be living here and I have relatives who have survived the atomic bomb and I don't get details of her? How did I live without knowing my history? How did I live without taking everything I want to know of her? How did I miss this chance? Continue.
Perhaps I was afraid of the tremble that came into Molly's voice when she talked about it, or of exposing my own ignorance. I found it much easier to stick to the topic I would come to discuss, the internment camps, where Molly and the rest of my mother's families had been banished during World War II.
So internment camps. She wanted to talk about the internment camps. Camps are those concentration camps where Japanese Americans were kept during the war. Remember the concentration camps that were built for the Jews?
Yes.
Through World War II?
Mm.
There was also camps for not only for the Jews who only suffered World War II, for the Japanese too, for the Mexican. Okay? So she wanted to concentrate more about those camps, the internment camps, where Molly and the rest of my mother's family have lived there through World War II. She wanted to hear from Aunt Molly more about this camp. That was a wartime embarrassment. Continue, Kadra.
That was wartime embarrassment I was familiar with. The makeshift barracks in the desert where the U.S. put it on a ethnically Japanese citizen, an episode had control over by having already spent a year exploring its limits and parameters.
Yes.
My
So
first
what happened? This was the embarrassment of her life. To know that or to realize that her mother's relatives have lived in camps. Where were these camps? The makeshift barracks in the desert, where the U.S. put its own ethnically the Japanese race, like the Jewish, the German race. So ethnic is the race. You know, race, not race, a complete race. The how can I say race? From where you came from. Like I'm from the Egyptian race, Syrian race, Asian race.
Yes.
Miss Halekti,
Miss, I can't hear you.